The pace with which the world today is moving, with its growing complexities, is somewhat not unknown to most of us. However, what is most intriguing is our ignorance, our utter ignorance of where it is taking us. The modern world wears a new look thanks to science, with its technological advancements and control over the physical world and its laws. Yet, in spite of all the acquaintance and the control over the physical laws, the law of all law, the law of Dharma, still remains elusive, undiscovered, misunderstood, and if I can say, uncared for. Dharma is a grand concept and everyone swears by Dharma, but no two individuals agree as to what constitutes Dharma. Dharma is bristled today with difficulties and confusions, both theoretical and practical. In the studio today, we have two eminent and illustrious personalities who will be illumining this path of Dharma and clear our certain doubts and hesitations in our minds. Sriram Prabhu Charan Das Maharaj is from the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON. Previously, with the ISKCON Sri Lanka movement, he has now completely attached to the ISKCON movement in Salem, where they are building a mammoth granite, all granite temple in Salem itself. Along with Sri Gokuldas Prabhu Maharaj, they are doing a lot of prachars on Dharma throughout the country and abroad. Swamiji has been initiated by His Holiness Bhaktivikas Swami, who himself is a disciple of His Holiness Srila Prabhupada. We extend our warm welcome to you, Swamiji. The other dignitary in the studio is Dr. R Venkatesh. He is a very popular face and he is a very regular panelist in almost all the prime shows in the national television. He is also a very renowned and accomplished columnist in large media publications in India. He is an advocate, an expert on criminal laws, on economic offences, serious financial frauds and anti-money laundering guidelines. For many who are not aware, he has also passed his chartered accountancy with an all India ranking. He is a doctorate, he is a visiting faculty in many professional educational institutions, and he has authored several books. His recent book, which was published in 2021, Retaining Balance the Eternal Way, was acclaimed widely even by the policy makers of this country. We extend a very, very warm welcome to Dr. R Venkatesh. I know he likes to be addressed as Dr. MRV. Swamiji, when we say that Dharma is that which upholds the order of this cosmos, it gives us and reveals to us the idea of sustainability. But from a different perspective, we find that the same Dharma keeps declining and from time to time needs reinstatement always. When Dharma is a sustainable value, why does it become unsustainable when applied and declining when practiced?
Hare Krishna. Thanks, Dr. Harish ji. First of all, you have set the tone for this entire discussion. Dharma, the word Dharma is actually a very a generic term. Fortunately, today the word Dharma has been become a common word across the world. There was this, even through various organizations, even the advent of the Indian civilization over the West, the word Dharma has become like a common word which is used across the globe. There was this famous novel which was written and became a bestseller in 1980s called Dharma Burms. It was very famous. It talks about Dharma in a very esoteric way. So the word Dharma has already become very common. Now the point, as you correctly said, is that the word dharma has a lot of connotations to it as well, even from a Vedic perspective. Generally, what dharma means, if you have to broadly bifurcate it to two, is one, it's called nature. Nature means prakriti or the nature of the soul or nature of ourselves. That's called dharma. To tell you an example, what is the dharma of sugar? Dharma of sugar is to be sweet. What is the dharma of a chili? The dharma of chili is to be spicy, to be hot. So there is some dharma for the soul as well. We are all spirit souls. So there is some dharma of the soul as well. So that is what in broader terms it is called dharma as a nature or the nature of the soul. The other commonly used term for dharma is about our duty. Our duty, what is our duty? Say for example, the spirit soul has some duty to perform. And what is that duty? And why is that duty more important for achieving the ultimate goal of life? So these two things has to be understood from a very broad perspective to understand dharma in a collective term. Now when you asked about this thing that dharma is declining and dharma has been misunderstood, people are not able to understand it in a very true sense. Even from a Vedic perspective, the decline of dharma starts, as Srimad Bhagavatam always quotes this in the first canto, that dharmo dharma kantasya na labho arthasya labhate. That when you actually focus dharma for some artha means for some sense gratificatory needs or the needs of your bodily whims, then dharma becomes misused. Dharma is only for apavargasya. Apavargasya means it is only used for mode of liberation or mode of achieving the primary goal or the ultimate goal or the paramo dharma. This is what we call it. So today, as I have to put it, that we have actually taken this word dharma or the duty of our self to be more of sense gratificatory in nature, and that is where the decline has started. This is just to give you a perspective. To conclude to your question is also that in Vedic times, even from the Vedic scriptures, we see that there is cycle. See, Vedic time is always cyclical. It's not linear. So the four yugas, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, comes once again in a cyclic format. So the dharma has four legs to it. As it's always been understood from Vedic perspective, it's called daya, purity, austerity and renunciation. These four limbs of dharma keeps reducing every 1/4 or 25% in each yuga. Satya Yuga had all these four limbs properly being maintained. In Treta Yuga it reduced by 25%. In Dwapara Yuga it reduces by 50%. And in Kali Yuga it's reduced by 75%. So it is already on the decline by, I would say, not by design, but by the historical way in which it has been doing. And even that's what we learn from Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Yata yada hi dharmasya glanir. Dharmasya glanir means when the dharma is on the decline, either I come myself or send my representative. So dharma sometimes, as a medium of time, it always starts declining. And that is where our Vedic scriptures helps us to bring it back to its ultimate.
The substance, as Swamiji pointed out, is that dharmic guidelines should not be followed blindly and used for sense gratification. That means the subtleties of dharma are very difficult for one to comprehend and therefore requires one to be very, very reflective and practice careful discernment when applying it to the principles of religion. Dr. MRV, is Dharma then an exclusive and privileged doctrine of the Hinduism, or can it be extended beyond religion?
So to go back to where Swamiji left, I would say that Dharma by itself has a propensity to go down, as Swamiji said, and that is absolutely religious agnostic. In the sense, you cannot pinpoint Dharma as if it is only linked to Hindus or Hinduism. Everybody has got a Dharma and every religion has got its own Dharma. Now, if you are a true a follower of a particular religion, your dharma is to follow that religion. No, you cannot take this concept into a religion. This concept is a trans-religious concept. So that is why this land has been able to absorb any religion. Like a bowl of milk can absorb any amount of sugar. This takes any religion, any type of philosophies, including agnostics, including Nastikas also. And you are able to carry on centuries after centuries because you are wedded to a root concept. The root concept, as Swamiji is there, so I don't want to elaborate much more on what he has said. But the root concept is dharma is what is ordained as a duty. That duty that you do. And there can be, say, I or Swamiji cannot lift a gun and shoot a person. That's not our duty and that's not bestowed on us. But an army man definitely has a duty to stop a person and he can kill. Killing is also a duty and that is a dharma. Whereas for me it's a different dharma, for Swamiji it's a dharma, for you Harish it's a different dharma. So dharma is what one experiences, and to me personally it will be a constant conversation with your conscious that guides the dharma. Right or wrong, Harish, you may not know what is right for me or wrong for me, but I know in a deep conversation with my conscience that I know what is right and what is wrong. And if my conscience says that this is right and I go ahead and do it, I think it's perfectly a dharmic act. Because my conscience will not permit me to do something which is not dharmic. Because consciousness is not something that is material, it is spiritual, it is your physical manifestation. So it comes from the divine. So divine cannot be there. Everybody cannot have a blessings of an acharya, everybody cannot have a blessings of a guru or a Swamiji right next to you. You can't be doing this. But it's a GPS system embedded in your own self that guides you, navigates you on a day-to-day mundane things also as to what you should do, what you shouldn't do. That is why our system says Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha. The ultimate aim is moksha, to be manifest with the Lord himself, that you become the Lord itself. But for which Artha and Kama are not supposed to be, you don't have to be wearing an artificial poverty or you have to necessarily be subjecting yourself to hunger or pangs of it. You don't have to do all these things. Artha and Kama, provided they are within the realms of Dharma. And what is that Dharma? I don't have to define to you. You know what it is because there is a Lord who guides you. So even to the most agnostic person, there is a constant conversation if he has with his spiritual self. I think that will guide him to Dharma.
So what I gather from what Dr. MRV says is that Dharma is universal. Yet, like what Swamiji says, it cannot remain a stationary system. And again, like what Dr. MRV says, that Dharma has no single meaning and that stands unchanged despite context. Swamiji, then how can Dharma prove itself capable of embracing and welcoming the whole modern development? In present times, how can we be sure and know when an action is truly dharmic? What is the method by which people today can perhaps fulfill the best versions of themselves and yet allow Dharma to be the operational factor behind that?
Yeah, the important point which Dr. MRV put across is that the Dharma is religious agnostic or religious neutral. See, what happens is, that's a very, very important point. Today, the ground reality, or what you call the common man on the ground, thinks that when you speak about Dharma, the connotations is misunderstood to be associated with one religion. Unfortunately, it is not. See, Dharma, as he correctly said, is actually everybody has to do it, irrespective of whether you are from this religion or that religion, or whether you are young, old, or whether you are male, female, or whether you are, rich, poor, or across caste, across, sections of society. So the point which you asked now is that how do one know that, this is the ultimate Dharma which I have to perform? In this question which you have asked now is not new. This question was asked 5,000 years ago in the Naimisharanya, when many of the sages got together and they put the same question across to Sutta Goswami. So today, after 2023, 5,000 years after that also, the same question is getting repeated and the answer is still the same. Even though we can say that, time has changed, or, the answers of those times would not be applicable today, need not be. The same questions are repeating. And what he answered is the same answer which is even applicable today. The answer is, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adokshaje Ahaituki Apratihata Ye Atma Suprasidati. It actually is very few words are there, but it has a very deep meaning. Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo. Pumsa means for human being. Pumsa means human being. Savai Pumsam. Savai means certainly. Paro Dharma, which means the ultimate dharma or the best dharma or a dharma which one has to perform. Okay. What it says, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adokshaje. So a bhakti or surrender or some actions in some, the religious activity or what you call for an ultimate good has to be performed to Adokshaja, Lord Krishna. Third and fourth line are even more important, that when one will know that he has performed the ultimate good, the last line says, he will be Suprasidati. Suprasidati means he becomes blissful, he becomes happy, he becomes that, yes, I have done this, I have helped somebody, I have gone to the temple, I have done this service, I have been a volunteer for this, I have given up everything. And what's the third line says? Ahaituki apratihata. What it means is, I am not expecting anything in return. Ahaituki. Apratihata means I am not even expecting anything for, for this goal I am doing. That, I am doing it for my name, I am doing it for my fame or for position or money. That is not Dharma. That is why I first answered, when Dharma becomes attached to some material concept, then it would not give you Suprasidati. When it is actually done in a very highest sense, as he was putting across, then what will happen is, it will automatically give you that, blissful nature, that, I am doing something good. That is how somebody will know that, yes, I am performing Dharma.
If Dharma then is the mode of conduct most conducive for spiritual growth of individuals, then can it be said that those actions and guidelines would be considered dharmic only to the point that they support spiritually uplifting endeavors? Would that be a limiting factor for Dharma's application in the context of the present world? Dr. MRV, please.
First, you must understand, Dharma is the most secular concept. It is the most secular, it is probably more secular than the Constitution of India. Okay. Second thing, to see this world as between sacred or spiritual on one hand and carnal and secular on the other hand is basically not a traditional Hindu way or Indian way or Indic way of looking at it. For us, the spiritual world is intertwined with the secular world. The secular world is intertwined with the spiritual world. Now, I will give you a classical example. The coconut that you take into a temple, break it for auspiciousness, is, according to the courts in India, sacred till you take it to the temple, and it becomes non-sacred or what I call it as a secular one once it is broken and given as prasad. Now, the same idea for us is, it is prasad for the Lord before you break it. Once you break it, it is prasad for the Lord, and after that consumption for us. It's only the sequence is there. So, how can you say that the coconut is sacred or secular? You cannot say that. To answer your question, that we are having a very, very clear path, that there is nothing called spiritual world, there is nothing called secular world. So you cannot be adhering to Dharma in your spiritual world alone without adhering to Dharma in your secular world. The role to spiritual world is intertwined with the role in your secular world. So you have to be dharmic. That is why Artha Kama is Dharma. So even Dharma has to assist Kama and Artha, because without Dharma, practicing Kama or Artha is not something, that is what Swamiji alludes to, that you say you cannot be a standalone exercise. It has to be an integrated, intertwined exercise, and the last goal is moksha. Moksha is not one that you have to start at the age of 18. You perform the role of a brahmacharya, you perform the role of a grihastha, then you perform the role of a vanaprasthi, then you see what you achieve as a, except for people who have taken to sannyas, there is a sannyasa rule that applies separately. But generally, if you are earning wealth through dharma, honestly, with all means, paying your taxes, it is on your path to moksha. Now, there is nothing spiritual about it, but there is everything spiritual about it. If you ask a Westerner, he will say it is secular exercise. For us, it is as much a spiritual exercise as it is a secular exercise. So, let us not put a differentiation factor, let us put an integral factor and see that these are all intertwined.
So that's a very, very inclusive concept
Yes.
of the Dharma. From a point of view of it becomes easier to understand.
Whatever you do will be dharma or adharma. In the sense, whatever you do has to be in two buckets. It cannot be secular and communal or secular and spiritual. You cannot put into a different bucket. You have to look at it whether what you do, is it dharmic? Is it adharmic? This is the question that you have to ask.
That was brilliant, Dr. MRV. But by and large, India is following the model of the Western civilization, which speaks and is presented as a universal paradigm, thus creating a myth that modern progress means to get rid of backwardness. And what does backwardness mean? Backwardness refers to all those traditional cultural ways. This is the prevailing myth that perhaps pervades the entire world, not India alone. So, when anything and everything which is eternal, cultural and traditional is spoken, it just gets reduced to blind beliefs. And Dharma therefore remains as an old, probably immortal, but still locked up in historical epics of India. Swamiji, can you kindly throw light on a living, on an existing, present day model of Dharma? Is it possible for any institution or place to, for that matter, to become a living explanation of this abstruse philosophy of Dharma in today's times?
Yes, of course. In the traditional way also, there has been a lineage by which Dharma has been given from one generation to another generation. That is where Puranas, Itihasas and your Vedic scriptures to greater extent come into play. The Puranas and Itihasas are being written or has been given to us in such a way to explain to us what is Dharma, what is Adharma, what has to be performed, what not to be performed, and what is the way of life that one has to take when we come to a junction of in life that we have to take left or right. These are all being given through our Puranas and Itihasic texts. So that is where we get the, what I call is, that is where some people misunderstand even today that these Itihasas and Vedic scriptures are very, very, not applicable to this day and age. But certainly it is not. What happened in the pages or what we hear from the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata is happening every day. The war which is happening today in some part of the world is the same situation what happened the war in Kurukshetra at 5000 years ago. The same war which Rama has to take over to establish Dharma, that he has to fight over the demon who was actually adharmic. So it's the same old story. Coming to the point that we are asked about whether there is any live examples or whether there is something which we can take as an role model for this activity. That is where many of the temples and the spiritual organizations come into picture. See, the idea of instituting a temple is also to show to the people that you come here, you understand about our Itihasas and Puranas, you understand about how to live a life. Today's temples have become standalone places of worship, unfortunately. People go there, spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes time, and they think that we are just getting some benefit out of it. It's like a business activity. I go to the Lord, ask for something, I throw some money to him, and then he will do this for me. Unfortunately, it is not. The temples are, I would call, universities which actually has to propagate Dharma to people. Today it is not happening. We are not able to spend time there, nor the temples and institutions are not able to give out those dharmas to people. And that is where the living examples or some of these examples which we need to have is actually all around. Even our own examples of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, has established temples all across the globe. I can tell today that we have temples in 180 countries, including the most poor countries like Somalia or all the African sub-Saharan countries, or even everywhere. Dharma is needed everywhere. It is not restricted to India. It is not restricted to, say, Nepal or Sri Lanka or something, or the Akhanda Bharat. It is needed everywhere, and some of these institutions are running very beautifully even today to actually show people that why Dharma is very much needed, how to do it practically. The other example which I can also think of is the Dharmasthala, a place in Karnataka, where there has been a tradition of many more generations they have been practicing this, showing to people that how this Dharma has to be practiced, how Dharma has to be done in a daily life. And that is another example which comes to my mind, which can be shown to the whole world that Dharma can be very, very practical. First, one should also read or hear and understand the history of Dharmasthala. The history of Dharmasthala, which started in the 10th, 11th century AD, how the Dharma Devatas came in, how they established the system of how the Dharma will be maintained by the Dharmadhikaris, and how 20 generations, not one or two, for centuries 20 generations of Dharmadhikaris have come, Heggades have come, and what they have done is they have still maintained the same duties and actions to maintain that Dharma. Last time I had this good fortune to be there on the Shankaranti day, when a beautiful thing happens. This is actually very, very important for any common man, or even for the system, as M.R.V. sir was telling, even for the system to understand how they actually maintain this transparency. The Dharmadhikari, Pujya Heggade, he goes on the Shankaranti day and answers in front of the Dharma Devatas about his actions, what he has done. And what I understood is, his actions are the answer. The transparency in which all the actions are completely told in front of the Dharma Devatas, that I have performed this, I have done this dana, I have taken care of this, I have maintained the total this thing of the entire community. Everything has been reported, so that even the common man who has come to that festival on that day hears out what has been done by the temple. There is nothing to hide. In Dharma, there is nothing to hide. It's an open book. And today, it's an epitome of how transparency can also be established in any system today, where today we are actually having a lot of problems, where people don't tell you transparently what they did. Some of the actions are kept very, very opaque. Here nothing is kept, anything, opaqueness is not there. Everything is transparent. The person who is the Dharmadhikari, who goes in front of the Dharma Devatas, and like a common man, he answers small questions. And if somebody can get this opportunity to see it, it shows that this place is still pure and still is the abode of Dharma.